So, what is this?
Well, last week we fired Danny.
Right.
Anyway, haven't heard from him. Figured he'd just show back up like everybody else does.
Of course.
Instead, we get an email. All it says is, for next week. And all that's attached is this video.
So, what is it?
I don't know. That's what we're about to find out.
I want a drink.
Sure.
Hey, BOJACK, it's me, Todd.
We're not going to show this, right?
What? No.
BOJACK, what did you do?
I'm done with this shit, BOJACK.
Wait, you're in this? When did you guys shoot this?
Yeah, Danny, I kind of forgot where I'm supposed to be, so where do you need me?
Aaron?
Fuck you.
Welcome to STUBTOWN. I'm your host, Brad Weber. Today we're going to talk about BOJACK Horseman. Last week the last set of episodes came out, but we are going to be talking probably about the whole show. You can't really talk about, I don't think, those final episodes without talking about them as a whole. Like they're very, it's wrapping the thing up, you know, and they're calling back all the time. Especially that second to last episode cannot exist without the other episodes. So this will be completely spoiler, the whole thing. Just a heads up. If you haven't seen BOJACK, I highly encourage that you just leave this video. Don't ever come back. You probably don't want to anyways. And go watch BOJACK Horseman. Go watch 7 seasons of that show.
There's 6.
6? Yeah, you're right. You're right.
There should have been 7.
I guess I thought about it as 7 because of the way.
That was in 2
That
hours.
might be the ending.
Anyways, we could go around and introduce ourselves and then we'll get right into it. We'll start down here.
Oh, hi, I'm Nolan Gold. BOJACK is the best show ever. That is all.
I'm William Mayhew, and my opinions were even stated.
I already just said it.
I'm Christopher Colleen. I also really like BOJACK. Liked BOJACK.
I'm Genevieve, and I'm sad that it's over.
I'm just sad in general, but
Yeah, that too, though.
So I think like talking about these last episodes, like they definitely could have used more time, I think is my initial impression for these. Like it's clear that the show was canned, but Netflix was like, here, finish it. But like watching that last episode, it's clear that's where they wanted to get to, but they got there so fast. I think like just having whole plot arcs happen off screen, like they made jokes out of it, but like Mr. Peanut Butter, it's like whole thing, like just being like, oh, we got divorced off screen, like that's a whole.
Yeah, just the montage at the very opening of the last episode just definitely showed that like that was what they were gonna. That was what season 7 would have been had they had a season 7, and just the rest of it was just gonna exploring like how. I like the idea that they wanted to explore cancel culture and like how it would be 10, 15 years, like how, like in real life, how would it be years later? But for BOJACK, it's like he's now in prison. He's now like did his time for everything. How would the world react to him and once he's out?
Yeah, like, like I'm just thinking about like even the relationship between like Princess Carolyn and Jonah, like
Yeah.
Judah.
Judah.
I said Jonah. I don't know. But yeah, like that whole arc. I don't know. That happened the last 3 episodes of the show.
It literally
It's
was.
like
It's just.
it's like he sings to her, then there's the one that's just BoJack's whole like death hallucination thing, and then they're just like married.
So it's not even in the middle episode of those 3. Like
It's really just Judah, like, just helping Carolyn out with a lot of stuff, and then he's like, I love you. Then the next time you see them, it's like, we're married now. Like, oh, okay.
And like we're saying, it does feel rushed, but I still think these last strings of episodes are
Right.
fantastic
Okay,
episodes.
yeah.
They are. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
I do
it's
really
just
like.
the pacing is kind of.
Yeah, but I like the slow scenes where, like, BoJack has his conversation with Todd, and another with Carolyn, and the very last one with Diane. I really like those scenes. I think those kind of justify the fact that it was rushed. So it's like, yeah, we want to explore all these, but like, here's at least BoJack reflecting everything with the 3 main cast alongside him.
I think BoJack, if anyone got time this season, BoJack got enough time for his thing. It's just I wish there could have been more time for Todd and especially Diane's thing, because Diane's thing was like half the show essentially. Like that was always the B plot, was what Diane and her boyfriend were doing.
Her episode, the one all about her.
Her book one with the
with the book about her depression. That one got to me.
Was it like the good pain or something like that, or what was that episode
I
called?
don't know. I don't look at the episode
It's
titles
really
because
good,
I
right?
just be like, click. But
I
that
loved
one,
it
I
too.
really liked that episode.
Yeah, that
I
was a good
think
episode.
it was really good exploration of her art because she's talked about, she's had problems the whole time, and then I feel like this having an episode just focus on her and be able to explore like all of her, like really rounded her character out. And I love her like recovery process, her healing process that's been happening in the 6th season, like how she said like, I don't want to take antidepressants because it'll make me gain weight, and then when Guy like comes back and we see, oh, she's gained weight, she's in recovery, and I think that was great. That was good.
I love her arc about like that leads into the last conversation she has with Princess Carolyn. Like I don't want to write this children's book or whatever, but then Princess Carolyn just has that whole thing like, well, maybe like you can't write your memoir. Like, and she's like, but that's my whole life. Like I was supposed to write that. And she's like, no, that's not the book you're supposed to write. Like, I think that's such a beautiful moment.
Yeah. I just was crying a lot. Throughout all the episodes.
I do like everyone had a happy ending. I don't, especially for Diane. I like how the way they played with Diane. How it's just like my boyfriend at the time, and then like everything, like the way she's like talking about it just sets up like, oh, her and Guy broke up probably. But then I just like how it.
Wait, didn't her and Guy like aren't they still together? Didn't she?
They're married.
No, but she
Yeah, but
said,
they
but like
fake
they're
you out,
married.
though.
But the way she was talking about it was like my boyfriend at the time, my boyfriend at the time.
Right,
But he
right.
was,
I know, like,
but now
Yeah,
Guy's her husband.
it's like that. It's like I don't think it's exactly a happy ending for everyone. I think it's very up in the air with most characters. Like,
Right.
which
I
is
mean, it
cool.
leaves like in
Well,
like
that
a
would be like
hopeful.
spoiler territory though. Like, you know.
Oh, I mean, we were in
We're in
Oh, we're-
spoilers.
the whole
Yeah.
episode spoilers.
Fine.
Okay, BoJack dies, but he doesn't really.
I mean, there's a valid theory that he's still dead in the entire last episode, just a continuation of his hallucination.
That's possible, but I think that's not, like, I don't know. I don't like that. I just like that.
Because that was just, because like I remember we were all talking about like how is it gonna end? Like everything's just going so wrong. How is it gonna end? And like one of them, it just felt like BoJack killing himself would have been just the easy way out.
Right.
It would have been the easy ending. I liked how they played with that in the second to last episode, where he just talks to everyone who has passed away, and throughout the series. I think that's just a really interesting.
Oh yeah, like the show part of, I mean, the dinner scene in The View from Halfway Down, which is the second to last episode, is amazing. It's so immaculately written. It's
yeah, absolutely.
probably the best writing in the whole series. Just that.
I think
a
Free Churro.
Yeah. It's like that's the only one I think of otherwise, right? But
Yeah.
this is like Free Churro, but for like 6 characters at once.
The writer of that episode, View from Halfway Down, she's written like a whole bunch of really great BoJack Horseman episodes. I can't remember her name. I feel bad for her.
It's on the screen now.
But she's fantastic.
Yeah. And the show section of that episode though, where they like the View from Halfway Down poem or Sarah Lynn's song, like
I was crying. I think from the View from Halfway Down poem to the end.
Right.
I was crying.
Oh, and he just goes to the Secretariat to the bridge, and like they're just talking about, man, we had a great fucking show. But I think that the ending, like if he killed himself, wouldn't play thematically, I think, with the rest of the show, which I think is ultimately a very hopeful show. Like even in its worst moments, like when BoJack choked Stephanie Beatrice's character.
I would, yeah.
I thought he was irredeemable at that point, and I
Yeah.
still feel that way. Like that's
Also, I found it weird that they never came back because I remember at the end of part 1 for season 6, like they delve into like how that affected her and how like nobody wants to work with her.
In the very
but they
last
don't
episode,
understand
you
why.
see that she got the part from that episode, though.
But
Like,
no,
as a
because there was
poster
that
for it.
conversation with the 2 directors where it's like, I need to find this female actress. And he was like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend her because she's really hard on set. But like, there's a reason why she was hard on set because like she's still traumatized by that event. But like, she can't talk to anyone about it because, you know, how I was like, I don't want to be the person remembered as the girl BoJack Horseman choked.
right.
I think that was kind of the point of the last mention you actually, or like reference to her, is just a billboard in the background where you see like she's already just way above him in like a famous role, and that's at the point where he's like done with his career.
But yeah, I mean, I think the point really is that like BoJack was avoiding punishment for what he did for the whole time. Like,
Right.
you know, through like, you know, he had a whole bunch of enablers around him and stuff like that who were willing to make excuses for him, and he just avoided like actually any reckoning. And in this season, we did get that reckoning that he deserved, and possibly he deserved worse. You know, like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, he went to prison for like 2 years or something, right? And
Yeah.
he still gets to go out and go to like fancy dinner parties
Right,
or whatever.
right.
Like,
And like, you know, we're told that like, you know, when he's out of jail, he's probably going to make a comeback in his career. It's probably going to happen, and it's gonna be, he might spiral into that same damaging, like, you know, personality he already had. But it's like, it's almost like Hollywood itself is the villain, you know, in some way, because like
Hollywood.
Hollywood. Because you know it's the environment that's enabling him to do these things. You know, like it's the one that's like, you know, making little excuses for him, and yeah.
and his comeback that is like set up is with the horny unicorn like thing.
Yeah, it's like.
Like he's like working with essentially like a Mel Gibson type character
Yeah.
who's gonna like his comeback won't be like he comes back and wins Oscars and wins everyone's hearts. Like he's gonna come back and be this like conservative like anti-PC culture
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I mean, there was a line that Princess Caroline said at the wedding where, because they showed the guy that BoJack was going to work on her Horny Unicorn with, and he's all fine. Like everyone's giving him high fives and everything. I think I'm trying to remember what she said, but it was like Hollywood remembers so fast, but also forgets so fast, and I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. And I just think that just easily tell. I think that was like another form of like how they were going to explore cancel culture had they had a 7th season.
yeah, I think we didn't get enough of that. I think like
I
out of
really
all of
wanted to
BoJack's
see-
arc, like that's
I really wanted to see like how the writers would have seen how things would have gone, because we're like a couple of years out of like the Me Too movement, or at least we're like that burst of like people coming out, and it's just like it'll be interesting to see like years from now how those people who've been accused, how they are now, and how people would react to them trying to maybe either come back or see if they even want to try to come back.
right. I think like the stuff that BoJack did like is so abhorrent.
Mhm.
Like I think he couldn't. I mean, it'd be hard to imagine him getting a comeback. Like
Yeah.
if Kevin Spacey can't have a comeback, or like you
Yeah.
know what I mean. Like BoJack killed people. Like it's like he killed Sarah Lynn. Like there's no, and he admits to it on national television.
Oh yeah,
Like
But
the
that's
second
like,
interview though, just the way she was just like berating him.
yeah.
It's like those 17 minutes, like
Mhm.
that could have been enough to save her, but
Like-
no, you decided to just save your own back, and she.
I think that's one of the most disgusting revelations in this season is that like BoJack like waited
Yeah.
for like 20 minutes instead of calling the police. Like there's so much.
Yeah.
And Hollyhock's ending like plays into that. Like
In that sense, like BoJack is kind of like a warning almost. Like,
Right.
you know, like we could easily let like celebrities get away with like, you know, what they do, or without any sort of like punishment. But like, because like when you said Kevin Spacey's not gonna have a career again, it's like 10 years from now, who knows, man? Like,
Right.
How horrible could it be? You know, like.
I think that's also confirmed in this universe that if you're a celebrity, you maybe get a comeback, but also billionaires can't just straight up kill people according to the law. Just
yeah.
in real life.
Yeah, that's.
I think this like the second half of this season overshadows the first half of this season like
Yeah.
a lot. Like I totally forgot about that whole plot line.
Even though the first half was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the two detective characters that like we haven't mentioned, like running around.
Oh yeah,
Paige Sinclair's like,
I was surprised they didn't come back for like some scene in the last few episodes. They kind of just disappeared from the plot, which I
Yeah.
assume is the time
because like
thing.
one
but-
of them's married and like there was gonna be a romance between them.
Yeah, I thought,
It was like, what
yeah.
the hell's going on?
I mean, I think that was partially just the joke was that that's a reference to just a lot of movies, and they probably just were
Right,
like
like
it's
His
not.
Girl Friday
Yeah,
or
they,
something
yeah,
like
they were
that,
probably just
yeah.
like it's an homage. It's not that important to actually.
I mean,
pay
yeah,
off in
like
the
their
end.
whole purpose was just to be the ones to bring out all of BoJack's faults, and then like once that's done, like they really didn't like.
Yeah, like in a different show, they could have just been bland characters, but because it's BoJack, they had to make them like really over the top
Oh, yeah.
to the point where you actually care, even though they're clearly just there to like plot occur.
I love that like none of the characters stick by BoJack though. Like when he does this thing, like there's that scene where he's like
I
in.
mean, Mr. Peanut Butter kind of
Yeah,
does.
Mr. Peanut Butter.
Nice.
I think we should acknowledge, like now that the show's done, that Paul F. Tompkins gave like the
Yeah.
best animated character performance maybe of all time with Mr. Peanut Butter. He's so pitch perfect. But like that scene where they're in BoJack's office at the university, and he's just like writing everything on
Oh,
the.
yeah.
And Diane is like, BoJack, like you did all this, and she's like, you didn't. She's like, I guess you didn't murder anyone technically or anything, but like.
Oh yeah, and Princess Caroline is like instructing him on how to give like a not real apology.
Yeah.
Or like
And that's where Diane is just like, I'm done with this. And that plays into the like heartbreaking ending of this show, like that last scene on the
Oh, yeah.
roof, which I still am thinking about. Like,
Oh yeah, because I'm just like imagining how Diane would have felt hearing that voicemail and everything.
right.
Because just the way she was like explaining
Yeah.
everything was like, oh shit.
She just wakes up with a voicemail, essentially BoJack saying he's gonna kill himself.
Yeah, like things are just turning well for her, and this happens. It's
Yeah.
like, oh no.
And just like, BoJack, I don't have time for that. Like, I don't have time to be taking care of you all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I have a life. And like, just that whole speech that she has about like people come into your life and they make you feel good, but they leave, and that's like not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. And
like,
that's, that's also
oh, go ahead.
that's also kind of going in like that, like Princess Caroline, where she was always trying to take care of BoJack, but now she can't because she actually has a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like I love that final interaction with Diane too, where it's like it's like that sort of thing where there's people that you meet that just kind of help you become who you are, but you don't necessarily have to keep them around. you
Yeah.
know? Like, yeah, because like BoJack is still a very toxic human being to be around, and I know there's that last bit where he's like he finally eats honeydew melon and like
And he's like, this is pretty good.
pretty good. Like I guess that kind of indicates that he's still trying to better himself in
Yeah.
some way.
Or the prison food is just that trash.
Maybe that's it.
Well, he did say like he said like a couple months he'll beat his original record for being sober, and Todd's like, and every day you'll keep breaking that record.
That is something that I was thinking about though. Like, I don't think that they should have said they put him in Supermax or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because then it unrealistically portrays like prison is not awful,
Right.
or like the American prison system is not, just.
Well, I guess it portrays it
Evil.
as not awful for wealthy.
Yeah.
But if you're in Supermax, they should have said like he goes to jail, and then he could have
Yeah.
just went to like some cushy jail that rich people end up going.
Yeah,
to,
I
you
found
know
kind
what
of.
mean?
I mean, it's
Yeah.
that thing too where you see him with the like briefly with the guys he's training to do like a play or whatever, and one of them's the actual like crime lord from the first episode of the show, which would imply some like wealthier people end up there, but then the other ones just seem like average like criminals. who are
Right, because yeah,
intelligent.
there's a line about a shank and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's like and that's not exactly how the real world works.
Yeah.
Rich people go
Yeah.
to rich people jail,
Yeah.
and then
And
it's a horrible system.
I think that the last shot of that interaction between Diane and BoJack, like it's like a minute and a half of them just
Yeah.
completely silent. And I love BoJack's line, like, wouldn't it be funny if this is the last time we ever talked? And then like he thinks he's being funny, but then you watch both their faces and they're like, oh, that's not funny. Like that wasn't like stop trying to break the tension here. Like
One thing that was weird, that shot was the very first shot of that last episode too.
of them sitting on the roof.
Yeah, just them sitting on the roof where it's just like just their heads, and like that's the very first shot.
Yeah, very first shot. That's
Yeah.
That's really.
I love each moment he gets with the characters in that episode. Though. Like there's like the cinematography in those moments is like very like Todd and BoJack on the beach and like the waves coming and like washing their footprints away, like in the background. Like
It's like it's
Yeah.
so visually perfect and like and like it's not exactly so clean like with each character, but it's appropriate for BoJack, like They do so good.
Yeah,
the writers of the show are so good.
Like Todd and BoJack's like whole relationship, which hasn't been a relationship for like half the show. like halfway through the series, Todd is like, I'm done with BoJack, and they pretty much don't interact anymore at that point. So like it was really interesting to just see them like have this moment, and like him still being like, I'm not gonna be part of your life. Like I don't want that. And it was just each of BoJack's friends being like, we're done with you, BoJack. Like, and so it plays into that, like him having multiple paths he can take still at the end of the show. Like,
I remember I was watching a video about BoJack, and one of them was saying like, basically BoJack, the show is about these characters dealing with shitty stuff that originated because of their parents.
yeah.
And it's just like BoJack with his parents, Todd with his parents, like Carolyn, like kind of like the way she is because of how like she had to take care of everyone in her family, and Diane, the way her dad treated her. So it's like, oh shit, like everyone just has.
It's like a show that it's a show that understands these characters, and it's a show that understands BoJack, but doesn't make an excuse for BoJack.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's where it has empathy for him, but it's not trying to be like justify his behavior.
It's like it doesn't justify, but you understand why he's doing this kind of shit. It's like they're still bad, but I understand it.
I mean, it also even explains how some of their parents ended up as bad as they were
Right.
too. So I feel
Because,
like just overall explaining how like American culture is trash and destroys everyone.
It's sort of recursive generational thing. That's this show is so good.
I think it's also-
it's my favorite show.
Yeah, it's
I think,
fantastic.
yeah.
Out of all the Netflix stuff, which like, this is the best show Netflix has ever produced.
Right.
And it's the last show that's still running from that original
Yeah.
batch of like Netflix, like original streaming series, like before like binging was a thing, and like they did like House of Cards and like BoJack and like, I don't remember. Those are the only two shows that stand out, right? But
Yeah.
BoJack was able to finish well.
I guess like Stranger Things. Maybe?
That's later.
Yeah, that was later.
Is that later? Okay.
But yeah, and I think it's really interesting that we see these characters, we see every other character end up in a better place than they were through their relationship with BoJack. Like, it is about BoJack as like a lightning rod for personal growth, but BoJack ends up in a worse spot. I think that's a really neat
I
place.
feel like he ends up in a worse spot, like physically, but I feel like mentally he has grown a lot, and like at least he's trying to better himself.
And
even
finally not
though-
held accountable for his actions,
Yeah.
which we really deeply wanted like the whole time. He's probably worse off financially, but he can probably get back too, based on the
Yeah, not only was he accounted for, but also like the people who would get him out of it are saying like no more. So I think that would also like push him.
Yeah, BoJack's just like a really hard truth, you know, about like people that you know when they're in like celebrity culture and stuff. It's so easy to forgive and it's so easy for them to like bounce back and you know and just like because we constantly see just BoJack, you know, build himself up so they can just knock himself down again, and I think is like the last real big one, like him going to jail. Like, hopefully it's his rock bottom, but who knows? If they had a few more seasons, you know, they could have.
I'm still gonna hope that some point some network somehow gets it
And they
and
get
do
to-
more seasons. Yeah.
I don't know. I like the
I'm
ending.
cool with the ending.
Yeah, I don't ever want to see those characters again in a good way.
Yeah,
It's like
I'd rather you leave it up to interpretation,
Mm-hmm.
because most of the time when people or at least a show comes back to expand on something, it usually doesn't turn out well.
Maybe they could do like a Better Call Saul where they like have a show around Princess Caroline or something.
but I don't want to see them get divorced, and I think that's the
That's the
only
thing. Like, I don't want to find out later on Diane and Guy end up getting divorced, or
But-
Carolyn or
but
Judah get
This is
divorced.
all the same thing we said about like Better Call Saul. Like we don't really care
Yeah,
about it.
I like that better than
But
Breaking
yeah,
Bad
it's
now.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like who knows? Like these are really talented people that work on this.
Well, that's
show,
my point. Is
so-
most shows I wouldn't say they should continue just in general when they have an ending because most shows go on too long. But in this case, like they had writers who literally said that they could have done more seasons.
Right.
I'm like, why like limit them if they actually could?
Speaking of limits, we're running out of time here. BoJack deserves 100 hours of time.
For a minute, do you want to talk about Free Churro real quick?
Oh my god. Yeah, let's actually quote the entire.
You get 1
speech
minute,
right now.
and then we are
Absolutely.
done.
Okay.
Greatest episode of television ever. 22 minutes of just pure pain and
Yes.
love.
And Will Arnett giving probably like the best performance because it's literally just a monologue in a visual format, and it's somehow like more captivating than most like actual action packed.
It has one joke, and it's still the funniest joke in the
Yes.
history of BoJack.
The reveal at the end.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
I thought you meant that just existence is a joke, but you know.
Yeah, it is. Yep. Thank you.
That's what time's at.
Everyone's showing me it's 5 minutes over. So yeah, without further ado, BoJack deserves 100 more hours of talking. I don't think there's any way you can sum this show up. It's fantastic. It's beautiful. Everyone should watch it. Thank you for watching. Goodbye from STUBTOWN.